Hey friends, welcome to the Equipping Podcast from Citylight Church in Omaha. Our goal is to help you grow in wisdom and love for God and neighbor. We hope this episode encourages you and equips you in your walk with God. So, Jared, this is like a makeup episode.
Yeah,
we did this already. We talked about this already.
Man, you know, we live in a world of technological miracles. Sorry, I'm digressing here, but my grandmother told me about, you know, she was born in a time of horses, rejected the idea of driving when that was radical.
Sure. Saw
the invention of the airplane, and then later, after it was only a military thing, spent, you know, time flying back and forth to Hawaii in the 50s and 60s over and over and over again. And I just imagine what it must be like to live in a world where things are changing that fast, and yet ours is unequivocally changing faster than that.
Yeah.
So we live in this amazing world where theoretically I could ask AI to build a podcast, record it, become two animated heads, say the whole thing, create its own script and edit itself and put it out on the internet. Mm-hmm. And yet we struggle to get the audio and video of one just recorded. Just like
we struggled to connect a cord, plug it in.
We've had a few mishaps when it comes to some technical issues.
But you know, the thing that people need to know is that first one was great.
It was so good.
Dr. Jonathan Pennington was with us on that conversation. Oh man, you missed it.
Yeah,
you missed it.
Yeah. It's the peak of all inside jokes. You just had to be there.
Had to be there. Yeah. Well, we're talking about Jonathan Pennington, and the reason we're talking about Jonathan Pennington is because he is coming to see us again.
Right.
So he was here last year, and we're having him again, same basic time, June, the end of June, so June 26th and 27th. We are going to be talking, his title for this thing was Children of the Resurrection and Kingdom of Priests. So that sounds a little bit like, what is that about? We're titling it Engaging Culture, and especially engaging culture as citizens of the kingdom. Right. So to make it much more concrete, what are we trying to do?
We want to provide tools, and I think Jonathan Pennington is a great resource for this, but we want to provide tools for someone to say, how am I supposed to react to the world around me? Should I be withdrawing? Should I be more active, less active in my children's school stuff, in politics, in the world around me? What is the call of the Christian? And there's a lot of competing voices and a lot of competing answers around this, all the way from some very far-reaching, like as a Christian, you must be very actively politically involved in all of these causes. Various sides, both sides of the aisle will make that case.
Yeah.
To those things are not our things. We are citizens of another kingdom.
Yep.
At best we should pray about them, right, or something like. And I'm really not trying to be demeaning to any view, but like there's a strong thing that's like, well, I shouldn't even feel a strong emotional pull toward that thing because that's not my kingdom. My kingdom is this kingdom.
Yeah. So the classic sort of framework for discussing what our options are here is from Richard Niebuhr. And Niebuhr has 5 options for us. 1, Christ against culture. So we should be actively fighting, and maybe this is kind of where I was raised. We were a sort of pure, set apart community who was sort of upholding Christian culture, and everybody else was radically corrupt, and so we're against culture.
You could almost, in that sense, look at whatever you can see that the world is doing, the movies coming out, the music, whatever, and go, well, that's the opposite of Christ.
Right.
So so I should do that.
Yeah.
Right.
So Christ against culture is over here. The next option is way over here, which is Christ of culture. So it's basically no tension between faith and society, that Jesus is the fulfiller of society's greatest hopes. And really this is not, this is the liberal Protestantism. It's just like we have no critique at all of what's happening.
What's that term? There's this therapeutic, what's the word?
Moralistic therapeutic deism.
Yeah, moralistic therapeutic
Christian,
deism has been a critique of modern Christianity.
Right,
American Christianity.
It's Christian Smith's way of describing American Christianity, right?
And saying essentially, he is our therapist in the sky, who occasionally provides things we want.
Right. And so just do whatever you want.
Yeah.
But
check in with them once a week.
It's good to know
and
that
hear,
there's a spiritual being in the world who cares.
And like your therapist, you might check in with him once a week, lay on his couch and say, what do you think about what I'm doing? And he might give you some real advice about it, but you once you walk out the door, you're free to do what you want. Right.
So Christ above culture is the third option. And this is a sort of synthesis, you could say. It's there is human culture and there's divine revelation, and they are different, right? So human culture, a lot of common good in it, but it's incomplete. And what you need to rise above it, look above it, and Christ builds on human culture, right? So it's not necessarily judgy of culture, but it sort of points to the true reality, which is that Christ is above it. One maybe that we're more familiar with, that one's we're less familiar with, but the one we're more familiar with is a sort of tension between two separate realms. So this would be number 4, Christ in culture in paradox. So there's like a spiritual realm, and then there's a purely secular realm, and you kind of participate in each, but you might feel like, I don't know how what I do over here corresponds to over here.
Is this a secular thing I'm doing or a material thing I'm doing?
Yeah, but you might have duties as a Christian, and then you might have duties as a citizen, and they don't really touch in that way. And then finally, there's Christ is the transformer of culture, which is about basically, yes, there's dissonance between Christ and the world, but Christ has to come in and sort of convert secular society. Like, we need to transform it and make it a Christian society. And I think there's a lot of Christians in this camp too, where we want to say, look, let's reclaim America for Christ, or something like that. Right?
Yeah. Or It should drive you to be who you are as a Christian, and that should drive you to change the people around you and the things around you. You should take a stand.
So I bring that up just to basically kind of get on the table people's minds turning, like, where do I fit in this? But I know that Dr. Pennington is going to come and talk about that paradigm and a couple other paradigms, because there's been some good books that have been written since then. James Davidson Hunter? Is that James Davidson Hunter? I think it's To Change the World. Great book about being a faithful presence in the world. But there's several others he's going to talk about. But he's really going to give us a sort of separate, a new paradigm for how we engage with culture, and especially this idea of being sort of a priesthood that is. So maybe we can step back, though, and just talk about, like, the beginning of Pennington's work began with his work on Matthew. And maybe you could describe real briefly kind of.
Yeah. So he was talking to us and saying that essentially he went, as part of his doctoral thesis and everything else, was sort of this idea of heaven and earth, this phrase, or these words that are coming up in Matthew specifically.
The kingdom of heaven.
The kingdom of heaven. And just these repetitions of these pairings of heaven and earth throughout Matthew. And
some people think kingdom of heaven is just a way of referring to God, right? And he disagrees with that.
Right. Like you might say, that argument might say something like, when Jesus says, I am here to announce the gospel of the kingdom of heaven, that's just a different way for God, for him to not have to repeat over and over and over again, I'm here with the gospel of God. Kingdom of heaven, God, got it.
I'm here on behalf of the Oval Office.
Right. Exactly. And he's essentially saying, no, that's not right. That heaven and earth are these contrasting ideas in Matthew that are being developed throughout Matthew. This idea that is something like the way of a way that honors and obeys and loves and fulfills God's will.
It's like a way of being ordered.
And he specifically talks about the Lord's Prayer. We see this very clearly, right? Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. So there's heaven is this way of being ordered toward the will of God. Earth is in rebellion. Earth is a world that is good and created by God and owes its allegiance to God, but is not necessarily ordered default. I when I heard him speaking about this, and as we were talking about this today, I'm reminded of there's a Bible Project video where they spend a lot of time talking about how, and I think there's some resonance between Pennington's idea here and what the Bible Project is getting at, is that this idea of Jesus sort of steps in and shows a world where these two are brought together.
Right.
And he, and the Bible Project has these two different realms that got separated. The divine and the earthly got separated at Eden, and then there have been points of light where they've shone through. But it's a beautiful animation that they put together that's designed to sort of explain that idea. And I think a lot of what Pennington is getting at here is that Christ and therefore his children that's the work of Christ on earth, was to bring together this kingdom of heaven and earth.
So maybe just to take a half step back, I mean, we are known for and prioritize being gospel centered in our preaching and in our teaching and in the way that we live. Like, we want to emphasize that we don't come to God through our own merit. Like, we're not earning salvation. And what we need an advocate, a perfect advocate in Jesus, who actually bore the punishment of our sin and gives us his righteousness. Right. He takes our sin, we take his righteousness, and that's how we approach God. We say, I'm with Jesus.
But
right?
Being gospel centered has a lot of baggage to it. The word, I should say, put to the phrase. I'm not. In fact, even as I said that, I winced, because I know people that I love in my audience, people that I love in my friends and family, who, if I was to say that, they would be like, "What are you talking about?" Of course not.
Right.
But
there's dangers.
There's
dangers associated with. So you can take it out of its biblical context, and you can mean something much narrower than you should. Right.
Well, let me just sidestep for a second for somebody who might struggle with what I'm trying to say here. Let me just say a word like the word conservative.
Right.
If I was to say I am a conservative,
right?
I
got no idea.
Right, you have no idea what I mean, right? You have literally no idea what is this. Does this mean that I don't know, hate immigrants, or does this mean that I hearken to a certain time, or does this mean that I wish it was the 50s? What are we saying?
Manage your money in a certain way.
Am I a Burkean conservative? And I'm talking about chivalry? Probably not. Maybe.
Right.
Anyway, so yeah.
So you can mean a lot of different
things
by this phrase.
So we're trying to lay out on the table the same thing with gospel-centered. Is like the fact that we all may individually have very tight ideas of, when I say gospel-centered, I mean this. Yeah. Let's also acknowledge that when I just say, well, I believe in gospel-centered theology.
Yeah, right.
Actually, I have a follow-up question, which is,
what do you mean?
Can you say what you just meant in other words?
So just to clarify what we mean, and the reason why we're inviting Dr. Pennington here is... When I talk about gospel-centered in our classes...
Because Jonathan Pennington doesn't believe in the gospel. That's why we're inviting him, right?
No. On record, no. But when we talk about it in our classes, maybe I'm just speaking for myself, we mean that we are both forgiven and free. Right. So forgiven and freed from the penalty of sin, but we're also... progressively freed from the power of sin. Right. We won't be fully free in this life, but there's a sort of renewal that happens in our hearts, which allows us to live out a life that is more attuned to flourishing and to the kingdom of heaven. Yeah. So one of the things that we're really doing with this event is basically we want to clarify, how do you engage culture, and what does it look like to live as a free citizen of heaven, or a free child of the resurrected. How do we live the resurrected life? Right.
If grace and, I'm going to say, works, the law, whatever you want to call it. If these two are actually, I think, most good Christian theology, if you're reading James and Romans together, you're going to have to face the fact that these two are connected things. Yep. Right? Being grace-filled means you'll do good works. Right, is a simple thing.
But Ephesians 2:8-9 is Ephesians 2:8-10 is the perfect
goes
example.
Back and forth.
For by grace you're saved through faith, not of yourselves. It is a gift of God, not by works.
Right, but yet.
Right, and then it turns right back around and says we're created in Christ Jesus for good works. Right, so not by, but for.
And I think if you're holding these two ideas and you acknowledge that there's a ironclad connection between the two, that they are connected. I think being gospel first a lot of times means we put a primacy on grace. We hold on first to grace, trusting that work comes along. Yes. But I think sometimes when people hear that or see that, they think that we're saying only grace, works don't matter. when actually, I think first and foremost, we acknowledge it. But the reason we're bringing all that up in conjunction with Jonathan Pennington is a big part of his talk and his drive and his engagement with culture is to actually say, yes, let's look at this. Let's look at this other piece of the
And the question is, what does freedom and flourishing look like as we, yes, are citizens of heaven and citizens of the kingdom, but have to live real lives here?
And not only have
these
to,
are big questions.
Yeah, get to.
We get to.
This is the good. This his last talk was called "The Good Life," and his question was, it was funny because he didn't even know when he came here that Nebraska's slogan was like "The Good Life."
The Good Life,
whatever.
right? Yeah.
So I thought he did. I assumed he was like coming to talk in Nebraska and thought, I'll do a talk called "The Good Life," but he didn't know that at all. But his point is, what does it look like to live the good life here? Now, what is a Christian living the good life?
And part of where he went there was even just like the Sermon on the Mount gives a picture of what a citizen of the kingdom lives like. And it especially the one that was powerful to me when I first read the book was he talks about these asherisms or blessings. So this blessed is the man who, right? And these, you have this list at the beginning of Matthew 5, and you're like, blessed are those who mourn, right. Or blessed are those who are persecuted. I mean, just like the list seems ironic almost, right? Yeah. And his point was there is a sort of paradoxical flourishing with suffering that exists within for citizens of the kingdom,
and those statements were just as weird and paradoxical to their time as they like.
So he doesn't just mean you're going to be blessed eventually if you suffer through suffering. But he's again, it's a.
I think Tyler Staton used a translation in a sermon one time. He said and I liked it because it's so plain text to us. But he said, "Congratulations to those who are suffering. Congratulations." He goes through the whole thing and he says, "Congratulations if you're poor in spirit." It's
the same language that Paul picks up in Romans 5 when he says you should boast or rejoice in your suffering. Right?
Yeah. This is something to be, something to be happy for now, not just because of what it's going to do for you in the future, but you should be happy today for these things.
So let me just walk through. We're gonna have 3 sessions in this. The first is going to be an exposition of John, which I'm excited for because we're in John as a sermon series, but he's focusing especially on John 1, and he's emphasizing the incarnation. So sometimes we as Christians can get sort of caught up in this idea that God is very abstract, like he is the essence of truth or the essence of goodness and beauty. But John says the word, the sort of, again, that's a freighted term for Greek philosophy. It means the logos is like the principle of rationality and beauty in the world. And he says the word became flesh, like body, fingernails, toenails, kneecaps, and dwelt among us. So emphasis on incarnation in 1, and then he's going to get to John 20 and emphasize the surprising nature of the inbreaking of God's power and grace here is the resurrection of the body, right?
Which is going to drive his next 2 sessions, because his next 2 sessions are asking this question of what does it mean to, and I don't just mean this metaphorically or metaphysically in a very vague sense, but literally, what does it mean to live as resurrected children of the resurrected King? That we, when we get baptized, we talk about being buried with him and a rise in new life. That in that moment, we've died, we've become a new creature. What does it mean to live as this resurrected creature now?
And it's an already not yet thing, right? Because we have the Spirit of God who raised Jesus from the dead, Romans 8 says, living inside of us. So we have this.
We anticipate more.
We have what Paul says, the first fruits of the Spirit, but we're also anticipating this fuller resurrection.
So a big part of his message, leading from session 1 into session 2, a big part of his message, I think, we can't.
We're just speculating.
We're speculating.
Right now.
But
because he's no longer on this call.
From what he told us, it was a great call though. But from what he's told us, a big part of his message is going to be driven from through this idea of he's very physically here. The Logos is real. It's like he said, fingernails, really died, really resurrected, but then that really resurrected thing gets translated into us. It's not just a metaphorical, we will be someday, don't worry, everything's going to be okay tomorrow. It's also we're living in the resurrection today. And what does that mean for us to be living in the resurrection today?
And part of what it means is that we are sort of represent him. Like we are embodied creatures ourselves, and we bring that sort of fleshiness to the world in terms of, yes, how we think and act, but also just how we see and how we feel and our emotions and what we do.
And we have a word for what a representative of the God to the world and the world to God is. Right. It's a priest.
Priest, yeah.
Right? Throughout all of history, this is what a priest has been, as a person standing in the gap between God and man.
So we are the kingdom of priests that Peter talks about in 1 Peter 2. Right?
So that'll be driving session 2, right?
Yeah.
Which is, so this will be like a Friday evening. You should plan this now, actually. If you've got your calendar out and you're like, because I know for me, I never plan anything ahead of time.
Yeah.
And then when the time comes around, my wife is like, actually, we have 15 things.
June 26th and 27th.
So look at your calendar now. Yeah. Look on Friday and Saturday. Friday, we're going to be talking
Friday's
about
session 1 about John.
Right. Friday's session 2
Saturday
moves
session
into
2.
living as resurrected children and priests of the living God.
And a priest teaches who God is, leads in worship, sacrifices, and blesses the world. And so that's the big, I mean, really, how are we offering a blessing, offering reconciliation to the world that we live in?
Yeah. And then that'll lead to Saturday's third session, which is on Saturday's second session, which is sort of a very practical. Which actually was one of the things I really liked about Jonathan the first time he was here. I feel
like this is why we invited him back.
Yeah.
Because there was like a tantalizing 5 minutes on this, and we're like, we need an hour.
We need more of that. Yeah. But not only that, but like, in general, one of my favorite things about Jonathan's teaching that I've heard and seen and read so far has been just how practical he gets, like really tangible. Because you could go around with this, like the Word was made flesh, like you said, we've been studying that, and then what does it mean to live resurrected? What does it mean to be a kingdom of priests? I guess I should try a little harder. Those are all those are the why behind it. But I do like that Jonathan takes some really big, complicated things and breaks them. So I, in some of the other ministry areas that I'm in, I'm always looking for that, like so simple that one, you can't forget it. Not just that you can remember it, but that you can't forget it. And then two, like, how does it translate from person to person to person? It just has to be so simple and automatic that it just goes. And some of his teaching that I've heard on this already, and what I know he's planning on bringing to this, are just these really, really practical. If you're looking for literally 3 ways, what should I do?
Right.
And the answer is he's going to answer that with 3 simple things.
His phrase is terraforming bit by bit. So first of all, what's terraforming?
It's changing the world to make it livable.
Yeah.
Like you went to Mars, they don't have enough air, the temperature is wrong, there's no atmosphere, and the sand is bad.
So essentially, you're bringing the kingdom of heaven to your bit of earth, like your community, your place, your family, your home, right? And bit by bit, what he means is build beautiful things, invite people into kingdom life, and tell a better story.
And that's what I was talking about. He's got this very, each one of those is something that is so simple and so relatively straightforward that even if he doesn't expound on it, which he's going to, but even if he doesn't expound on it, if all I told you was, hey, as a Christian, you need to do these 3 things, you could start to imagine what it means to build beautiful things. Well, what does it mean to be built?
And the three things are essentially, how do we apply our Christianity to work? How do we apply Christianity to our relationships? And how do we proclaim the gospel to others? Yeah. So I'm super excited for him to come. It was just a blast to have him last year. He's a fantastic teacher. He's got a book on preaching called Small Preaching, which is based on a book called Small Teaching. Similar type of thing, short chapters, fantastic resource.
Really applicable, really. Again, several times, some of the teaching that I've sat under with him has been the simplest and clearest, that's what it means to be holy as God is holy, or pure as your Father in heaven is pure. It's like that. That's a challenging passage that he just makes it simple.
Great teacher, cool glasses. You won't want to miss it. Anyway, we are
show up for the glasses, stay for the teaching.
Yeah. Anyway, June 26th and 27th. You can find
there a lunch.
There is a lunch on the 27th.
Lunch, so show up for the food.
There'll be some snacks in the morning.
Show up 4 hours early for the food.
Yeah,
or whatever it is.
No, please don't do that.
Well, you can show up in the morning to listen to him, but you're there.
Oh, sure.
To eat at noon.
Oh, right. Show up 4 hours before lunch.
Yeah. So 4 hours before lunch.
Super confusing. June 26th and 27th. Look it up on the website. I'm sure they got better details than we can give. Anyway, thanks for tuning in. Until next time.
All right.